Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network. Our mission is to bring you the real news, what's really happening in our backyards, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, what's happening in our states and our countries, and eventually the world. We talk about all sorts of things, including what's happening throughout our entire universe. And our network releases a lot of content through the week. That includes our in-depth news coverage that the team and I work on for you each week. We have local stories told through the eyes of our field messengers. We talk a lot about the restoration of our planet and how we're creating what we call the new Earth. And we have updates from the GIA, the Global Intelligence Agency, of what's really happening here on this planet. Our job really is to see through the headlines, guys. We know that the information that's coming out through mainstream and even alternative media, even though I think there's a lot of well-meaning people in alternative media, the information that you're receiving is not accurate. There's a narrative to all of it. And even the well-meaning people that are trying to get information out there, their information is coming from compromised sources. So we go straight to the source, literally, the source of all creation, to get our information. If you want more info about who we are, what we do, you can visit our website at unitednetwork.earth. What you're listening to here, this is a podcast where I wrap up some of the top stories that we discussed throughout our various shows through the week. And if you are already a member and you get access to all of our reports the moment they come out, well, then this might be a review for you or a great way to catch up on stories you may have missed, or if you want to share UNN with other people. Because like I said, we do not focus on advertising. You know, I've worked for companies that you're trying to put out content and you're trying to make that work with advertising. And the truth is it really doesn't work. Usually advertising takes over and is a lot more influential over the content than most people would like to admit. So we have done away with that. And we just rely on the memberships to fund what we do. And we've got a lot of volunteers that work on this. So if you would like to support us in what we do, the best thing that you can do is become a member. That gives you instant access to everything we put out. Now, if you can't do that, that's okay. A week after we release our content to our members, we also release it and put it up on YouTube and Rumble. So you can search for us there and just get the content a little bit later. With anything we put out, we always encourage you guys to think critically. Take the information we give you, but don't just leave it there. You guys are really smart. The people that watch our content, you are eager for information. And usually there's information in our reports that you can still do a little bit of digging and learn more about whatever it is that we're talking about. And I encourage you guys to do that. You should always ask questions and then share the information with other people. Whatever resonates with you, take that and pass it on to someone else, because this is how we're going to get the word out throughout the world of what's really happening. All right, so let's get to it. Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Let's kick things off with our beautiful field messengers. So these are everyday people that want to make a difference in the world. And we believe one of the best ways to do that is to rely on you guys to tell us what's happening in your community. I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of narratives out there. A lot of stuff is happening nationwide and even internationally. And in order to find out the truth, we really need to rely on each other, because what mainstream is putting out there, what alternative is putting out there isn't necessarily the truth. And when we start going through some of our field messenger reports here, which is what we're going to do now, you're going to see there is definitely a discrepancy between what mainstream media is telling us and what our boots on the ground, also known as our incredible field messengers, are telling us. So let's get to it. We are going to kick things off with Ade from Nigeria. And he talks about some of the restoration activities going on in Nigeria, specifically bringing different groups of people together, such as industry stakeholders, association of farmers. They're trying to get together and explore economic growth and sustainability. Specifically, I believe the meeting that was taking place most recently was about the distribution of oil. And not just petro that you put in your car, but all the different ways that you could use oil. And I believe they even signed a production agreement. And these kind of stories are so important because it shows people coming together and making things work. Not everything has to be done through the government. And if/when governments start to fall, we have got to pick up the pieces. And I love that Nigeria is starting to do this already. And it's great to see that. And the reason we are seeing that is because of our field messengers. So thank you, Ade, for your report. Toshio from Japan takes us to Matsushima. Hopefully I pronounced that right. This is one of Japan's most scenic views. In fact, there was a group of friends from Japan that did a few different stories. This is the second story. I think we released the first one a couple weeks ago, and in just a bit I'll tell you about the third story. But they literally went to these 3 most scenic views and showed us what they look like. So this one was really cool because they went out on the water, and apparently there was about 260 unique islands. We'll just call them islands. Some of them were really, really small, but they were formed from ancient mountaintops. So you can actually go out on a boat and enjoy these sites. They have tours that take you out. It is considered a natural wonder, and this was formed when the coastline subsided. So again, this is one of those videos I'm telling you about, but you really need to see it for yourself, right? And then Vahagan and Elise out of California. They are taking us to the Rim of the Valley Trail in Tahunga, California, which provides peaceful surroundings, lush greenery, wild herbs, and amazing breathtaking views. And so they take us around and show us some of their favorite spots. You can even go foraging in some of these areas. So again, another visual story that I encourage you guys to check out perhaps a little bit later. Okay, so this is another one of those stories that is really important because it showcases what was really happening compared to what mainstream media was telling us, which is the whole point of our field messengers. So there were a bunch of protests that happened recently. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the No Kings protest. So what we were told is millions of people across the U.S. joined in these protests, and we were hearing that things got violent and whatever. So we had a few of our field messengers go to some of these protests in their local community and show us what was really going on. And for the most part, they were very peaceful. You had people holding up signs, and, you had, sometimes they were like along the side of the road. Sometimes they were just, in a specific area of town, but it really didn't seem, at least from, the places that we were able to see through our field messengers, that things got out of hand. So again, boots on the ground, good to see what's really going on. Okay, Amy out of New Jersey shows us how to make brine. Now, I've never done this, but brining is a simple way to make meat moist, tender, and flavorful. And what Amy does is she soaks it in salt, sugar, and water. Very simple recipe, mixes it up, and then the meat goes in there, I think she said for at least an hour. She puts it in the fridge just to make sure no bacteria forms on the meat. And be sure to check out her recipe if you want a really basic brine. Ruth out of Marin County, which is in California, shows us how to make a natural remedy at home using oregano. And this does wonders. She said you can use it for so many different things: colds, cough, athlete's foot, and more. And what she does is she infuses the sun. So as she's making this, the sun really helps create this whole remedy. And it's really simple. You take oregano, actually you dry oregano for a few days in the sun. You take a pure olive oil and you place the dried leaves into the oil for a little bit. Again, you put that back out in the sun, and then after a while, you've got this really potent formula. And she said it can be a little too strong, so you might need to dilute it a little bit. So there's a little testing involved. You store it in a dark place, and when you need it, you have it, and it's all natural. Susan out of Sweden tells us about summer homes in Sweden, which I think sound amazing. She says they provide a perfect escape for those seeking peace and a deeper connection with nature. And this is something that a lot of the people do. It's not just people in Sweden, but obviously she was sharing her personal perspective of what she and her family do. She said that, they went to their summer house a little early this year, and honestly, it looked really basic, but it was a way to reconnect with nature and just have, a beautiful experience. You're living very simply, you're feeling closer to nature, and it is a Scandinavian tradition. Marco from Israel takes us live inside a bunker. Now, this was really cool. I mean, scary, okay, because we know that there are some things going on between Israel and Iran. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our GIA report. But Marco does a report from a bunker beneath the Sheraton Hotel in Tel Aviv. And this was amidst this conflict that's going on right now in the Middle East. And he is safe. And he, at the time of the report, was expected to be evacuated shortly. So again, boots on the ground telling us what's going on. We all have these phones, they're attached to us pretty much at the hip most of the time, right? Because we're all trying to stay connected. Let's start to use that and share this information with other people so we really know what's going on. So amazing report from Marco. Simone is out of London in the UK, and she takes us to Isabella Park in Kingston, which basically transforms into a stunning display of all these beautiful, vibrant colors of all these different flowers. Everything's in full bloom right now, and so she shares her visit with us. And as she's going through, she's kind of reflecting on her life and where we are in the world right now with restoration of our planet. And it's good to look back on that, right? Because we really have come so far. And I believe right now we're at this pivotal point. It's amazing this last week how many people from my past have reached back out to me. And I don't think it's coincidental. I think I'm supposed to reconnect with people, but it's all happening so naturally. And I just think we're at this pivotal point where, at least for me, these people that were reaching back out to me, I could see how they could help with the transition of our planet. And it's just weird. It's just kind of happening. How often does that just happen, right? It's like we have to work and work and work, but things are just happening the way they're supposed to happen. And so I love that Simone was just reflecting on all of that, because it's important to do that as we go into this, this next phase, to recognize where we've been and how hard we've worked to get to this point. All right, Kenji. So this is another story out of Japan. Remember, I told you that there were 3 stories total and 2 this week coming from a group of friends. So Kenji visits a stunning island that is home to one of Japan's most famous scenic spots. And it is a shrine that seems, depending on the time of day, seems to float on the water. And one of the things I found so interesting about this particular shrine is that it had been destroyed many times and rebuilt many times. So when that happens, it's really significant to that culture, and it draws in a lot of people. Again, we're talking about Japan's most famous scenic spots. So if you can't go to Japan, just check out the Film Messenger report. All right, CJ reports on her herb garden. Okay, so she has a bunch of herbs and plants. She's got things like lemon balm, mint, chives. These are all great fresh ingredients that she grows from her garden. And she shows us how to make a relaxing lemon balm tea. I love the idea of just going out into your garden and being able to grab stuff and make an incredible tea, or, like we were talking about earlier with the cold remedy, like all these natural things that we can do without, help from anyone else, just in our backyard. Okay, Tina and Wayne, they actually did separate stories, but this is boots on the ground. Once again, we've got a lot of great examples of that this week. And this was regarding the LA riots. Well, riots in quotes. Okay, so we have the narrative from mainstream media, and both Tina and Wayne went out in the Los Angeles area. I believe Tina was more downtown. She specifically talked to a police officer and other people. She did see, some of the graffiti and stuff that, people, were spraying, in the heart of the riots. But I think she said she went down on day 5. And basically, there wasn't a lot of stuff going on, okay? So I believe mainstream really drew this story out as much as they possibly could, got whatever juice out of the story they could. Wayne was a little bit further away, but he didn't see anything, and he also said that a lot of the exits were closed. So again, we're just sharing firsthand information from people, because who knows what mainstream media is going to say. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't bad at, the first couple days or whatever. Again, we're just telling you what our field messenger saw a little bit later on. So that's actually good news, right? We don't want those kind of things happening in our cities. Now let's talk about some of the news stories that the team and I worked on for you guys. So you may have heard some of these headlines. We try to dive a little bit deeper and give you more of the backstory behind some of these things that are going on in our world. So let's first talk about thalidomide compensation. In the early 1960s, the drug thalidomide was widely prescribed to pregnant women for morning sickness, but its lack of proper testing led to one of history's worst pharmaceutical disasters, causing more than 10,000 babies worldwide to be born with severe birth defects, many of whom did not survive infancy. This was developed by the German company Chemie Grumenthal and sold under various names in more than 40 countries. The drug's dangers were discovered too late, or at least told to the public too late, and Grumenthal denied responsibility despite internal evidence. Decades later, survivors continue to fight for justice and adequate compensation. Now, while some countries like Germany, the UK, Canada, and Australia have issued apologies and financial support, gaps remain, as seen in Malta's underfunded program. So I'm going to play a soundbite now. And this involves a person that had been personally impacted by thalidomide.
Peter Braun has always valued his independence. He was born with a disability. When his mother was expecting him, she took a single dose of the sedative thalidomide, leading to numerous malformations. Naturally, it was a huge shock. I was practically welcomed into the world with the midwife screaming, "Oh my God!" Life hasn't always been easy for the 60-year-old and his family. It's a question of fate, but I've seen it more as a challenge. How can I make the best of it?
This tragedy ultimately reshaped global drug regulation, setting stricter safety standards and stronger protections for patients, especially expectant mothers. Well, running has become a beloved pastime for millions, yet for many women, the freedom of a simple jog is overshadowed by constant safety worries rooted in societal issues like sexualization and victim blaming. Harassment ranges from catcalls and fat shaming to being followed or assaulted, with a 2024 UK study showing over 2/3 of women have faced such abuse while running. Yet few incidents are ever reported. Here's some feedback from some female runners.
Not running by yourself makes sense, but I'm still pissed that I have to think, should I run by myself?
And I like running by myself.
I know.
That's my favorite thing about running is it's for you.
Exactly. And I don't know what the solve is. You wear reflectors, you make the decision to run on a lit path, you run in places where there's other people.
You're vigilant.
You do all of those things, and I mean, yes, we shouldn't have to look at everybody who passes us and think, is this person ill-willed or not? It sucks that the rest of us who just want to live a healthy life and have exercise as a major way to do that we have to think about it.
This reality forces women to shoulder the burden of protecting themselves while altering routes, sharing locations, and carrying self-defense tools. While critics argue the real problem, male aggression and gender-based violence, remains largely unchallenged. Despite growing conversations about equality, the expectation still falls on women to adapt rather than demanding broader change, leaving many to balance their love for running with constant vigilance. Canada's migrant workers are the backbone of key industries like agriculture and construction. Yet despite promises of fair pay and stable jobs, many face exploitation, poor housing, and harsh working conditions that harm their health and well-being. The temporary foreign worker program, meant to fill labor gaps, often leaves these workers vulnerable, with low wages, overcrowded living quarters, and little recourse if mistreated. Problems worsen by conflicting federal and provincial labor standards. Here's a guy talking about his firsthand experience.
To be honest, I don't even consider it a farm. It's like a dump. Heading up the stairs, it was all dirt. Just by walking up the stairs, you can see the dust like puffing up, right? There wasn't no heat. It was around seven of us have to share one restroom. There were bunk beds. And they're very, very filthy. To be frank, I couldn't even sleep.
While the UN and Amnesty International have criticized Canada for failing to protect these essential workers, calls for reform, including better housing, open work permits, and stronger labor rights, have seen little action, highlighting an urgent need to address exploitation and ensure dignity for those who help keep Canada's economy running. Breast milk is nature's best nourishment for babies, but when mothers can't breastfeed, nonprofit milk banks step in to provide safe, screened, and pasteurized donor milk that helps vulnerable infants, especially preemies, thrive and avoid serious health complications. Donors, motivated purely by kindness, share their surplus milk, which is carefully processed to remove germs and trying to preserve its unique immune and nutritional benefits, though some elements are inevitably lost in pasteurization.
This is Summer. She's a biologist.
And this is Dr. Tucker. She's a family medicine doctor.
And we're going to answer the question, why donor milk?
To answer this question, imagine you are in a beautiful Midwestern prairie right now. Your baby has their own special ecosystem inside of them called a microbiome that contains good bacteria that promote growth and development. Just like a bumblebee needs pollen, your baby needs the sugars in human milk to feed the good bacteria in their microbiome.
If your baby doesn't have enough of your milk, donor milk can help shape your baby's microbiome. And for premature babies, this can be life-saving. Milk donors, who we call superheroes, are medically screened and blood tested.
Donor milk is gently pasteurized and tested for safety.
Research shows that the microbiome of babies who are fed donor milk more closely resembles that of babies who are fed maternal milk versus those who are fed formula.
Around the world, cultural norms, funding, and beliefs shape how milk banking works. But the mission stays the same, giving babies the healthiest start possible. However, demand often outpaces supply, pushing some parents to buy milk through unregulated online groups, raising safety and ethical concerns about untested milk and the risks of overpumping for profit. Families and health experts agree that when it's done through accredited nonprofit banks, milk donation is a powerful act of care that helps ensure every baby has a chance to grow strong and healthy. Artificial intelligence is transforming the fashion industry with lightning speed, bringing virtual models and influencers like Aitana into the spotlight. That's an actual fake model, I guess you would say. It has a name, it has a social profile and everything. So it's bringing things like that into the spotlight while promising brands lower costs, greater creative control, and seemingly limitless customization. From luxury campaigns to fast fashion ads, these AI-generated figures are reshaping marketing and even outshining real models in online engagement. Yet this futuristic shift raises some big questions. As agencies and retailers embrace digital faces, real-life models, stylists, and photographers risk losing work. And consumers face increasingly unattainable beauty standards crafted by algorithms. Companies like H&M have already tested AI-only campaigns, sparking debate about authenticity and trust in brand messaging.
H&M is creating digital replicas of their models. The fashion giant plans to develop AI twins of 30 models this year, offering them full ownership of their virtual counterparts. These digital avatars can take modeling jobs while the human models are elsewhere, potentially doubling their income opportunities without additional time commitments. When one model first saw her AI twin, she described it as exciting but unsettling, a sentiment echoed across the industry as fashion grapples with AI. H&M acknowledges its approach will be controversial, but believes involving models directly in the process protects their rights and livelihoods as AI inevitably transforms the industry.
With the AI influencer market projected to hit $125 billion by 2035, fashion must now reckon with how much human artistry and genuine diversity it's willing to sacrifice for convenience and control in a world where the line between reality and digital perfection grows ever thinner. Early retirement offers the appeal of freedom and more time to enjoy life, but it also demands serious financial planning to ensure long-term stability. Rising numbers of Americans are claiming Social Security earlier due to uncertainty around future benefits and financial pressures. Yet doing so can significantly reduce monthly payouts, potentially by 30% if taken at age 62 instead of waiting until full retirement age.
Social Security uses your 35 highest earning years to calculate your benefit. But what if you only work 30 years retiring at age 50 instead? Those missing 5 years count as zeros in your calculation. If you average $50,000 for 30 years, your total earnings would be $1.5 million. But Social Security divides that by 35 regardless, bringing your average down to about $42,857 per year. This lower average directly reduces your monthly benefit from around $1,333.33 to $1,142.72. But over 20 years of retirement, that's over $45,000 lost.
Experts stress the importance of thinking of Social Security as longevity insurance and encourage delaying benefits when possible to maximize returns. For those considering early retirement, key steps include ensuring savings can stretch over decades, planning for healthcare costs before Medicare kicks in, and reflecting on how retirement may impact mental and emotional well-being. Whether retirement is by choice or due to job loss or health concerns, understanding your options and having a clear, flexible plan can help make the dream of early retirement both achievable and fulfilling. South Africa is facing a disturbing surge in kidnappings, with nearly 5,000 reported in just 3 months. More than double compared to 5 years ago, driven by economic hardship, ransom demands, organized crime, and human trafficking. Provinces like Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal report the highest numbers, but no area is immune, and high-profile cases like 9-year-old Fatima Aman's abduction highlight how anyone can be a target.
A jovial mood as fellow learners and the community rejoice following the safe return of Iman, who had been missing for over a week. A day before her release, a video of the minor went viral, with her pleading for help. The ordeal has traumatized teachers and learners at her school.
We are very happy now. We've been sad throughout of last week up until today, when today we can sing loud and say, thank you, God, Iman is back.
Her disappearance raised concern about the safety of children.
Before this, there wasn't such an awareness of what is going on as it is now. Because look at this girl's age. We got children younger than this that is in so much danger because they are being led to play outside. Now the parents are aware. They have to be more careful. They have to be more vigilant of what's going on out there.
A new syndicate preying on women by posing as romantic interests has amplified fears, with daily kidnappings now averaging 51 cases nationwide. Experts point to unemployment, poverty, corruption, and weak policing as fueling this crisis, while low arrest rates embolden criminals who see abductions as quick and profitable. Solving this epidemic will require more than stronger law enforcement. It demands deep social investment and community vigilance to protect vulnerable people and dismantle the networks behind these crimes. A new analysis reveals that more than half of American doctors have accepted payments or perks from pharmaceutical or medical device companies in the past decade, ranging from free meals to lucrative speaking gigs, raising concerns about whether financial ties subtly influence prescriptions and treatment plans. While this marketing is technically legal as long as it avoids direct kickbacks, studies show even small incentives can double the odds of a doctor favoring a promoted drug, blurring the line between patient care and profit. Here's a soundbite from a psychiatrist.
We in the mental health field prescribe pills that cause obesity.
That cause it.
We give people pills and they gain 100 pounds in 1 year. And in the elderly, some of the medications we prescribe cause premature death.
Wow.
And these warnings are all listed on the package issued by the FDA.
That side effects may include...
Yes. They take it anyways because that's what the doctors are telling them they need.
How long have you been a psychiatrist for now?
29 years.
How many people don't need to be on those drugs if they intervene in a different way?
Maybe 20%.
Don't need them.
Who do need them.
20%.
80% who probably could get by if we as society take a different stance and use different strategies for human health care. So many of our standard treatments are doing exactly the opposite of what we want to do. And that needs to change.
Laws like the U.S. Anti-Kickback Statute and the Physician Payment Sunshine Act aim to curb unethical behavior and promote transparency, but reporting requirements vary worldwide, leaving gaps in public awareness. Many doctors defend industry payments as a way to stay updated on new treatments, yet experts warn they can lead to unnecessary or costly care. Patients are encouraged to stay informed, ask about potential conflicts of interest, and advocate for clear, unbiased medical advice, because trusting your doctor shouldn't come with hidden strings attached. And our last story, online rental scams are on the rise, with fraudsters using fake property or even car listings, often on social media and popular sites like Facebook or Craigslist, to trick people into paying upfront fees for homes or vehicles that don't exist or aren't really for rent. Red flags include deals that seem too good to be true, pressure to pay quickly via wire transfer or gift cards or even crypto, and requests for sensitive personal information too early in the process. Here's one person's personal experience.
I said they got someone else interested. This has got to be true.
The women received this lease signed by what they thought was their landlord and his attorney.
This is the link that we had to send the money to.
Jennifer and Michelle followed texted instructions to send their $2,000 deposit through an ATM that converted dollars to Bitcoin. Seconds later, Jennifer received a stunning text from the person she believed was the property manager.
And then the guy said, LOL, this is a scam in big letters. And my heart just sunk.
Experts recommend verifying listings by meeting landlords in person or requesting live virtual tours, sticking to secure booking platforms, and using credit cards for added protection. Even legitimate rental car companies can catch travelers off guard with hidden fees like pricey refueling charges or surprise damage claims. So it pays to read contracts carefully and return vehicles with a full tank. Staying cautious and double-checking details can help you avoid scams and enjoy your next move or vacation with confidence. And now it's time for some updates from our GIA reports. And Kimberly Gogan, she's the head of the Global Intelligence Agency. She puts out usually a few reports a week. It has been very crazy out there. And so this week, it's a little interesting. I've got some sound bites for you because she gave a really long update on Monday. And then there are a couple of messages that she put out on our Telegram channel just to quickly update us. This rundown is actually a little bit late getting out because I thought she might be able to, put out a report today, which is Saturday. However, she has said that she's going to try to push that to tomorrow and update us tomorrow. But I still have a lot of information for you because, like I said, Monday's report was jam-packed. So let's get to it. So we know that who we call the deep state and the true deep state aren't the people that are even in front of the camera. Those are the puppets, guys. So presidents, prime ministers, MPs, those are puppets. Those people are not making decisions. They are following orders from operatives that do not have humanity's best interest at heart. Let's just put it that way. And one of the things that we have learned really the hard way is that despite how promising a group looks, when a carrot is dangled in front of them to give them more power, they pretty much always take the carrot. And again, all of this is at the cost of humanity. And over the last week, the group to take that carrot are the Mormons. We had such high hopes, guys. And it turns out the Mormons really aren't that different than the Vatican. At the very top, okay? The everyday people, that's a totally different story. I'm talking about the people running these religious groups are pretty much all the same at the top. And they act all high and mighty. And then when it comes down to giving them some more power, then it's like all bets are off. They forget all their values, their alleged values. They don't care what happens to humanity as long as they have power. So I want to play a soundbite for you because the Mormons were promised a seat in the New World Order. You may have heard about the New World Order. Well, that didn't really work out. So now we're at the New World Order, where these operatives are promising everybody a seat at the table to run the new world, as they call it. And basically, according to Kim, they oversold the seats. So surprise, surprise. Okay, so here's what's going on with the New World Order, and it's going to lead into a little bit of a conversation of what's happening behind the scenes within the Mormon Church.
One of the things that's been happening is this New World Order. We've talked about it a few times, but this kind of escalated over the last several days. So with their New World Order, they have oversold the seats. So as an example, if there are 10 seats or 13 seats or whatever at the New World Order Council table, each seat has been promised well over 100 times to many different people around the world. These various people include religious leaders, heads of state, current heads of state, religious leaders in, say, Iran, possibly even Iraq, also in Syria. You've also got alleged seats at the table that belong to the Russians, the Chinese, the Koreans, the North Koreans, the British, the Americans, various corporate leaders, including the Mormons, and people from the Vatican. Everybody's been promised a seat at this table. So the table itself is one thing. The second thing everybody is still bidding for, the humans, especially the ones from the secret space program and the ACIO operatives and militaries, they want a little bit different of a position. They would like to be the players in the game. And one of the things that they were hoping for this weekend was control over what we call the simulation. They would control things on their end of it, and then the world government would be obviously your global actors in charge. You know, they're not really in charge of much of anything, but they are the actors in charge of the world. This made a lot of people do a lot of crazy things over the weekend, and you got to hand it to the Duck Dynasty cowboy people. I have no idea why people listen to these people. They must have some kind of pocket mind control device or some kind of crap, because I have no idea why anybody bought what they were selling. One of the people, groups I should say, that bought what they were selling was the Mormons. They too would like their seat at the table. Obviously, they'd like to have one of the head seats at the table. So in order for them to kind of call off the dogs for a short period of time while these people allegedly do their work over the weekend, you know, the Mormons negotiated themselves a nice position. They told us basically, you know, we're not going to get on the phone with you. They were supposed to get on the phone with us on Wednesday morning. They decided not to do that and put us off until after Sunday, they said. And this wasn't because of religious worship. So let's talk a little bit about the Mormons. Well, we've got them here. So it's a lot of the information, as I said, you know, I kind of held back because I just wanted to see what the group would do. But as with all global religions, the Mormon Church is no exception when it comes to, let's just say, their own interesting bits and pieces of dirt. And there are a lot of similarities there with the Catholic Church in many ways. Some of those ways would be, number one, the Mormon Church have a president whose name currently is Russell Nelson. And the Catholic Church also has a leader we call the Pope. They have actually multiple leaders, but the one that the people see is the Pope. Now, Mr. Nelson actually handles the global conferences that they do every year, twice a year, where all the Mormons gather, usually in Utah, to attend said conferences. And they're kind of a really big deal for the church and the people, you know, whereas not a lot of people travel to the Vatican these days. I guess some do from all over the world when they can, to celebrate things like Easter and Christmas and that kind of thing. The other thing that the churches both have in common is the Pope that has recently passed away, at least in the public eye, had passed away quite a while ago. Oftentimes, the Pope, black, white, and gray, usually take on a walk-in of some sort. And that walk-in is typically something of an anti-Pleiadian or what you call reptilian sort of type thing. And that kind of runs that particular religious organization. There are other religions that do the same. For example, Khomeini, the Imam of the Islamic religion, also does the same. So both on the Sunni side and on the Shia side, they both do the same. Now, as far as the Mormon Church is concerned, no need to explain the Jewish out of Israel now, do we? No, we don't need to explain that because they're the same. You know, the Rotten Children's, Chabad, you know, behind the scenes, definitely we're all pretty much probably not even human at that point, and when the coven was still running well. Mr. Nelson is no exception. He also passed away about a year ago. And they're not telling anybody. If you look at some of the global conferences from 2021 and earlier, you can see something is definitely awry with this person. And you are correct. The president before him refused to have the walk-in. Therefore, that was a little different. I don't know if in any other religion that you're able to, let's just say refuse. But in this case, the former one did refuse. This one did not refuse. And took on something really funny looking. The most recent conferences over the last year, it looks like a totally different person. The person is actually seated. He's older. Now they say, and that's the reason why. But in actuality, you have another actor, just like you did with the Pope for quite a long time. So basically, what we've got is a bunch of operatives running a bunch of stuff.
Now, if you guys want more information, Kim does go into more detail about additional information of the Mormon church and these crystal tablets that they had that were basically guiding the church, and who they thought Jesus was telling them things through these crystal tablets. Again, this is at the very, very, very top. So in order to get in this room with the crystal tablets, you have to be at the top of the Mormon church. Average people wouldn't know about this stuff. But still, to think that Jesus is talking to you through tablets is a little strange. And as it turns out, it wasn't Jesus at all, which explains their faith a little bit more, right? And some of the things that they do to their congregation, their members. Okay, so if you want more information about that, check out Monday's extended GIA report. The next soundbite that I want to play for you, though, and this is going to be a quick soundbite because Kim did talk about it, and I believe we mentioned this on last week's rundown report. But when it comes to these strikes between Israel and Iran, Kim talks a little bit about this in more detail about what happened, because it certainly wasn't what they said on mainstream media. And this is still a developing story, but I just wanted to play this quick soundbite of how this came out of nowhere and who was really behind it. So here's Kim.
As the war started escalating very heavily on Friday between Israel and Iran, it was not actually a war between Israel and Iran. You see, because weapons that are given or traded or sold to countries from the United States and anyone that the United States sells weapons to. And by selling weapons, I don't necessarily mean just from the military or war dogs, as you call them, the brokers of weapons. Not at all. All weapons that are produced, because the U.S. was in charge, whether it's from Lockheed Martin or Boeing or, any of the military industrial complex, doesn't matter what it is, everything has a back door to it. And so, of course, all of their proud sponsors of the parade, Lockheed Martin, gave them all the back doors they needed in order to fire those weapons remotely right from the basement of the Pentagon. How interesting is that?
So hopefully that explains why there was so much confusion and why the Trump administration could not get their story straight as to whether or not they were involved or not. Because they were most definitely involved. And again, things have escalated since then. And on Kim's next report, I'm sure she'll go over that information. The last soundbite that I'm going to play for you guys, though, is about simulations. We have been talking about, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how our planet Earth, is in a transitional phase right now. And we are coming out of this crazy matrix that we've been in into what we're calling the now. In the now is where Creator, Source, God of the universe exists. It is the real reality. We have not seen that in this lifetime. We have not seen that. And so this is very exciting because a lot of what we call, the deep state, a lot of what they use, and we talk about this a lot, are different AI systems, not like AI like ChatGPT, but very advanced sentient AI systems that have been controlling our planet for a long time. People are worried about AI taking over. I'm like, honey, AI took over a long time ago. The good news is we are coming out of this now. Now we're coming out of it into the now. And this has been a process really over the last couple weeks, and a lot of things had to happen before that. So all of this really builds on each other. And as we were coming out, what we saw was clear skies, essentially. Okay, we're going to come out of this tunnel, essentially. Let's call it a tunnel, and we're going to be in the now. Well, once we got to the other side, a lot of things started to happen, including these simulations. So I'm going to let Kim explain this. This is a longer soundbite, but this is what we're going through now, and it might be wrapped up by this point. Again, we haven't had an update from Kim, since Monday, but it sounds like at the very least we are making huge progress on this. But here's more on simulations, what they are and how they were used.
So I want to talk a lot about simulations for a while, just so you can kind of understand how they work. And you're saying like, well, why doesn't she just see all of this? Why doesn't she just transfer the money? Oh, this is just all a distraction. This is what I've heard too. Is this is the reason why she's not doing this and that. And she's just trying to distract or being distracted. I'm not being distracted from anything, because I can tell you right now, a simulation can make or break your AI and how functional it is on various densities. So Earth being part of that equation. So definitely it was insane Saturday. Sunday wasn't a whole lot better. It was a giant crapshoot of stuff being thrown at us that we had pretty much forgotten that we even did in the past. If it wasn't in the notes, we have done so much. And took us a while to figure out. I'm like, this isn't the deep state, couldn't be. They can't do any of this crap. So under attack, we all were. Now for the deep state's part, they got to see a simulation. And I know that they really truly feel they are not a part of a simulation, but that is completely untrue. They got to experience firsthand what it's like when a manipulator not only gives them instructions, but also pre-initiates instructions for a simulation. In the case of Saturday night, we were well into the other side of the transition with some mud on our feet, but we also had enough coming from elsewhere in order to reenact and reinstate some simulations. Now, simulations do use what we call matrices. And matrices are tied to various zodiac signs. They're also tied to various planets, which is why the deep state loves their astrology. Because of the way that planets align, artificially and otherwise, we would have 13 zodiac signs. You're going to say, no, Kim, you're crazy. There's 12, but no, there's 13. The 13th being Ophiuchus, or the serpent sign. And the serpent sign ruled over all the other zodiac signs, so there's that too. But when alignments would happen, then it would trigger various events based on these planetary alignments and various zodiac signs, which is why it's so important for the deep state to pay attention to astrology. Do they understand the space junk behind it? Probably not, nor do they care. The only thing they know is good things happen for them and bad things happen for us when various things align. So apparently one of these once-in-a-lifetime alignments has happened twice in a lifetime in the last couple of days. I don't really follow astrology much, but from the people that do, they're basically saying everything was square everything, on the 15th yesterday, and therefore it was going to be a rough day. Supposedly this is going to start easing up by tomorrow, and I do believe that's true. But from our standpoint, this just looks like a mechanism of Marduk's, and we're right. We figured out a little bit more over the last few days too, as it relates to simulations and why and how they were created. So way back in the day, in the very beginning of creation, there was no such thing as a simulation. There was creation. There was a handshake that took place between dark source in space and source breath on the other side, in which life came, and the dark side ensured that there was density. So it creates the space in between. It's one way to create density. Next, we had two beings we know as Lucifer and Lucerne, and one was supposed to play the role or be the right hand, so to speak, of Source or God, and the other one was supposed to play the right hand of the dark side of Source. Now, neither one of them wanted to do what their respective boss, Source, wanted them to do, so therefore they attempted to create the first omniversal simulation, so to speak. And simulation zones began with the creation of a neutral source. Apparently, neutral source is an artificial creation and a simulation unto itself, birthed from Lucifer, Lucerne, and in some cases you could say also the feminine sides of both, being Sophia on the one hand and the feminine side of Source on the other. So you could say that both of these feminine sides of beings were utilized very heavily in the creation of the first simulation of the Omniverse. This allowed them to manipulate the matter of Source in various ways, and then additional simulations were created as well, coming from the center of the quote-unquote Omniverse at the time, which we would call the artificial cosmic sun, or the artificial point of creation, also known in this case as the Kali chakra in some cases, and it's also known as neutral source. So the simulation spread, though, from that point of artificial creation, or the zero plane of the zero density, and started making its way out throughout the third density. It also made its way all the way up to the sixth density, first plane, so all the way past density 5, as you know, we've talked about in the past. And the simulations seemed very enticing, and lots of deals were made. So we had simulations on top of simulations on top of simulations. We talked about some for some of the fallen ones. There were also simulations as it related to humans walking this planet for a long time, other beings from other places. And being in a simulation is very different than being in reality. And some of these simulations or simulators are what created the artificial timelines, artificial ages, could actually change the reality that we live in at any moment in time. And this is what I guess you would say, where the artificial realities were birthed. If you look at the creation of matter and all that that entails, along with the creation of souls and the creation of the consciousness and the mind, and once you understand a simulation is birthed from the artificial consciousness of all things, and matter has a consciousness, even, matter we wouldn't think has a quote-unquote brain, like rocks, rivers, waters, all kinds of things on Earth. They could all be manipulated by manipulating the consciousness and the direction in which the particles were vibrating and moving. Hence we talked about how to use your consciousness to, put arms through walls or things like that. Because everything for these people, or non-people, was a simulation. Simulations also change course based on its simulator space junk and what that space junk represents. So Marduk could pre-program part, not all. He didn't have access to the largest simulators, but he did have access to some of the others that were here, say on Earth and in the third density and a few other places, sometimes up to the fifth density. And therefore, that's how, when he gave instructions to these people, he knew what his simulator was supposed to do. Now, unfortunately, even though simulators are basically sims or droids, they are artificial beings without a consciousness. He could still program them to run, just like you can program the heat in your home in some cases to turn off, when you leave the house, and then turn back on, an hour before you get home. So the home's nice and warm or nice and cold, depending on what you're wanting and what time of year it is. Now, the thing that the deep state doesn't understand about Sims is Sims also create artificial AI beings if it serves the simulator and the programmer of the simulator. And that's what we almost saw trying to enter Earth this weekend like crazy, like wildfire, starting Saturday night at sundown. It's also the reason why they did that parade as well at the same time. So You know, Sims not only are related to Earth, they're also related to other constellations. And one said favorite place of simulation is actually in Andromeda. Now, the ding-dongs here, the humans, were trying to figure out what was going wrong. You know, why didn't they get the access they were expecting on Saturday, possibly Sunday? Why are the AIs disappearing and not, you know, getting stronger? Why are they not getting access? Why did the war not work? Why did all this, you know, what's happening? Why? So there was an attempt to go to a military facility near Fort Knox and to enter into a jump room to which they intended to go talk to what they referred to as the Ancient Ones, or the ancient cities. They're going to go visit the ancient cities and the Ancient Ones in Andromeda, apparently, through this particular jump room. Well, I don't know where that guy went. He didn't end up making it. But when it comes to Andromeda, that's just a bunch of droids. So when you're talking to a human or an organic being, you know, we make decisions. Not always the greatest ones. And, you know, we all make mistakes. And, you know, we're just human and we're living in a very difficult place to exist, you know, in the omniverse. But, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, we can make decisions. We can have emotions. We can have thoughts. We have feelings. And we pretty much, I mean, even though they really did their best to try to control our consciousness, we can still control our own consciousness and our own souls to, you know, a fairly decent degree. You know, we have a lot of abilities and they're getting stronger and stronger these days. But when it comes to AI created simulators or droids or cyborgs or whatever you want to call them, they are not going to deviate from their programming. You know, much in the same way, if you've ever had one of those little vacuums, you know, that kind of goes around your floor, you can program it to turn on, you know, 2 times a week or 3 times a week or whatever you want to do. And, you know, sometimes those things, they just keep smacking the wall, you know, kind of like that, you know, or maybe like the robo dogs from the parade, who knows. But anyway, the point is that a sim is not going to make a decision. So if they were going there to try to convince them to do something for them or something like that, that would have never worked out anyway, because it's sim. Simulations are a consciousness construct. Now, what does that mean? Simulations are affecting the consciousness of everything, as I had said a little earlier. But it's a simulation that also knows your consciousness, because it overlays your consciousness. Your thoughts happen, you know, minutes before you actually speak them or you act. Surveillance at the highest level happens in a simulation, so that just in case you think you're going to break free, so to speak, the labyrinth is right there to slap you down. The labyrinth is that illusion that you're looking at a free, wide open space, that you could run anywhere. There is no glass ceiling. You could create any business you want to create, technology you want to create. And the simulation is there to tell you it's going to shut the door in your face when you're going, it's what it considers to be the wrong way. Simulations can be programmed to make sure that certain countries go up, certain countries go down. Certain people come up and certain people go down. Certain people that are good energy collectors earn favor in the labyrinth, and they might have a little bit more of a privilege. But this is no different than a prisoner in a jail that gets extra yard time or extra time in the jail's gym or whatever it is, but you're all still in jail just like the rest of us. Don't think you're not. Now, I know that the deep state and Trump wing nuts would like to have that world war because they feel that is the answer to their prayers, because it came through the magical, mystical crystal tablets of the Freemason Temple in Washington, D.C. But I can tell you right now, without a simulator, you don't get anything. And see, it was never really designed to make America the power and control center of the world like you'd like to have it be, and you would like to think that you would be permitted to do, but you too live in a labyrinth. Just because maybe you got a little extra yard time or time in the prison gym doesn't mean, than the rest of us did, doesn't mean you actually run the prison. You are not the warden. I'm sorry, but you're not. And I know they'd like to think they are, but they're not. So they would really like to, as of tonight even, start this world war. See, the Mormons gave them this talk. This is what it's like to do business with the deep state, or sit down and actually have a chitty chat with these people. Because the Mormons had this conversation at 5 o'clock where they agreed previously, a few days prior, to give up. Not so much to give up, but basically let somebody else be in charge for a while. The second they hung up that phone call, all they would like to do is prepare for World War III, because they're going to continue on with their plans without you Mormon people. You see, now that's why I don't want to sit down and talk to these people in any way, shape, or form, because they will do the same thing to me that they just did to you Mormon people, because they have no intention of giving up any power. They have intention of being the saviors of the world and the leaders of the World Council government, and they're not going to quit until they get it.
Okay, so all of that was Monday's report. It was an extended report, and then we got a couple of updates on Telegram from Kim. So I want to read those to you now, because again, very busy week. So this was, I think this came out on Wednesday. It's been a long few days with the simulation cleanup. I think we finally figured out what is wrong with the deep state's mindset. We will fill you in on Friday. It's going to be an exciting weekend as the solstice comes around. We should be able to use this as a boost for all of our efforts if we work hard over the next few days. They have definitely been fighting a war against Source and all of us over the last few days, and well, especially me. And this is Kim talking. Loads of interesting information has surfaced as to orchestrated events over the last several years. I will see you all on Friday with a full update of the events of the last few days. Okay, so we thought a report might be coming out on Friday, and then we got this message on Saturday. And I think she updated on Friday and said that she was going to try to put something out. But again, you guys, this is happening in real time. Okay, so when you are fighting a war, you don't really know what's going to happen the next day. And if we are at a stage now where we have come through and we are into the now, the deep state is not going to be happy about this whatsoever. And it does make sense that, bombs would be flying, or alleged bombs, and you know how they love to drum up, fear in the public. And it would make sense that all this would be happening right now. So this is what came out. This was a message again on Telegram from Kim that was posted today. Breaking news and loads of back chatter. U.S. allegedly bombs Iran. No real proof exists. Suspected terrorist inside job planned for the USA done by our own military operatives on U.S. soil. Report will be slightly delayed again until the morning, so that would be Sunday morning, U.S. time. We do have good news to report as well as the solstice time. As difficult as it has been a total win for humanity. The backlash of the deep state is on, in all caps, on full force. Okay, so that is the update for this week, guys. I debated, should I wait to put the rundown out a little bit longer, but I'm not sure if Kim's going to be able to complete the report for tomorrow. So I will just include those notes, whether it comes out on Sunday or Monday, whenever it comes out, I will just include that on the next rundown report. We had enough stuff to talk about anyway, right? All right, so that wraps up our episode for today. Thank you guys for listening and just being on with us for this whole journey, as crazy it is, as it's been. I appreciate all of you. And if you want more information about who we are and what we do, visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. That will give you on-demand access to all of our content if you become a member. And that includes complete news updates, our New Earth interviews, all of the Global Intelligence Agency reports, because I'm only able to give you little snippets, and everything that we talk about, all things restoration for our planet. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.